In this week's episode of Working with Evernote, it's time for me to reveal my current setup. Hello and welcome to episode 87 of my Working with Evernote series. My name is Carl Pauline, and in this week's episode it's time for me to reveal how my Evernote is set up at the start of 2018 so that you can see how I've organized my Evernote and maybe get some inspiration about how you too can organize your own Evernote. Now, before we go into this, I really must stress that I'm a big believer in when it comes to your note application, it needs to be very, very personally set up for yourself. Now, the reason for this is we all think differently. Some of us think logically. Some of us like to think a little bit less logically. Some of us have different ways of thinking about how to organize things. And I've always found, particularly when I'm coaching my own clients, that everybody has a different way of preferring how things are organized. Now, a classic example would be your underwear drawer. So, for example, your boxer shorts or underwear may go in one drawer and your socks may go in another drawer. Other people like to mix the two together. It really doesn't matter. It's whatever your preferred way of organizing things are. Now, this is how I've organized mine. I have to confess, and I will put a link to this in the notes section below, that most of my organization now is inspired by the wonderful video that Enrico Nahler did on Francesco D'Alesso's channel. I'll put a link to that, as I say, in the comment section below. And I am using pretty much tags for everything, but I'm a big user of notebooks. Now, a lot of people say you don't need a lot of notebooks, and for many people that is absolutely true. But I just have a way that I like to have things organized in notebooks, but I do use tagging a lot. Incidentally, I'm also using the Command J, that's on a Mac, function a lot more now than I ever used to do. So really, I find my tagging system and the notebook system doesn't matter that much, because I seem to be using about 80%, 20% of my notes 80% of the time. But anyway, I'm going to go into Evernote now and show you how to do that. But before I do that, I would just like to ask, if you like this video, please click on the like button below. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, please subscribe. Okay, let's get into Evernote and I'll show you how mine is set up at the start of 2018. Right, so let's start off with my notebooks. Now, as I'm sure everyone knows, I have my inbox at the top with the ampersand at the start of inbox, because that's where all my notes start. They start in the inbox, and without fail, they always start in inbox. Because what I've learned is if I start dumping things and using like the email shortcuts that you can use, like @ would mean your project, the hashtag means your label, your tag, I can't remember which way around it is. Things are getting dumped and they never get checked and they never get seen. So everything, whether it's a note about a specific project I'm working on, or whatever it is always going to start in my inbox, because it really doesn't take very long to process the inbox anyway. And I do like to make sure that I can review what I've collected and then either decide to keep it, delete it, or move it to the relevant project or note. Then next up, I have as number one my current project stack. At the moment, I've only got two. The first one is my Range Rover Velar, which I want to buy this year. I was hoping to buy it in March, but I may have to delay that. But that's okay. So I have my Range Rover Velar project there, things that I'm keeping notes on, specs and stuff like that. I also have this year's book that I'm writing this year. That's just been started. At the moment, it's just got one note in it, but by the time we get to April or May, that notebook will have a lot more notes in it. Next up comes my work notebook, which is basically any article, note or reference material that I've collected that's related to the work that I do gets dumped in there. And I also have my personal notebook, which has all the relevant materials and collections for like hobbies and interests, and even places that I want to travel will get dumped in there. Next up, number 4, comes my online courses stack. This is where I actually keep notes related to the online courses that I do. As you can see, I actually have a special one for Udemy courses, but I also have all the other courses that I've done are in here. They are all in there because as I get ideas about improving those courses, which I do over time, I can add ideas into there, and then when I decide, okay, next month I'm going to update this particular course, I can pull out that notebook and I've got all the details that I want in there. So that's a special notebook that I have for that. Next up, I have my journal for 2018. The reason why I actually create a notebook for that, and each one is labeled by the month that I'm writing, is essentially that if I wish at the end of the year, I can print out that notebook as a book, which would be the journal entries that I've collected for the year. Number 6 is my checklist, and I keep all the checklists related, like my weekly review checklist and my daily mini review checklist and various other presentation checklists. All my checklists are in there. I've got a someday maybe stack, which has quite a few of the actual projects these would be, and if I wanted to move them up into my active projects folder, I can do. As you can see, I actually have a notebook already for Your Digital Life 3.0, and it's actually got 6 notes in already. But it's going to be a couple of years before I actually write that book, so at least a couple of years. So that's going to go into my someday maybe. It's not an active project right now, so it's in my someday maybe. I also have an archive, and this is where I just dump notes that I finished with but don't necessarily want to throw away. And then I have Gtd Templates, which is actually a shared notebook from the Evernote community, and it's just some templates that I wish to look at. If I don't like them, I can delete them off and move on. Okay, let's move into the tags, which I think is the key area for most people these days, is the tagging system. So as I mentioned in the introduction, I was inspired by Enrico Nahler's YouTube video with Francesco when he went through the actual how he sets it up. Mine isn't exactly the same as him, but I do use the labels. So I've got colon for people, I've got at for places, kind of logical sense, that one. I've got the / for what, I've got the hashtag for when, I've got the, I don't know what you call that, but the upper arrow indication key for my incubator, which is a very important label, because this is those are for the notes that I'm working on right now, just dumping ground. As you remember from last week's episode, that's where a lot of my playground notes go. And then I've got my read review, which is separated out into articles, podcasts, and YouTube videos. I've collected 6 articles to read this week in a lot more depth, and I've just dumped them in there, and I will get through to them by Sunday night. That will be empty. Everything will be empty. I've already listened to the podcasts and the YouTube videos I wanted to watch this week. They've all been done. I just have to read the articles at some point over the weekend. Free talking is a unique label for me because that's related to my work, and it's also separated out into different segments here because this is articles that I use with my students. And then I've got one called Z old tags. I want this at the bottom. These are tags that I just cannot get rid of. I've tried deleting them, but because they're related to other people, I just can't get rid of them. So I created a Z old tags. If you ever have a tag that you can't delete because they came in from a shared notebook that you followed, just create as old tags and just dump them in there. Now, as I mentioned in the introduction, I use Command J. So Command J brings up this particular dialog box. Now, one of the most common notebooks or tags that I use is my content. Actually, my current one is the one. I don't actually have to type the hashtag. I can just type CUR and it brings up current. Now, I have an accident here because I've also got what as a current, which needs deleting. But I know that the hashtag is current because it's time related, like a when. So I hit that and that will bring up like my weekly social media content. It brings up my a special offer that I'm doing for my Time and Life Mastery. By the way, guys, by the time you read this, there's only probably about 1 day left. So if you want to get 50% off my Time and Life Mastery course and get a copy of Your Digital Life free, and a free copy of the 2008 Time and Life Mastery Workbook. Now is the time to go. If you go to I'll put a link below with the special code that you need, and you can enroll. The code that you need is January 2017 and TLM, I think it is. Anyway, the code will be in the notes section below. Time to get into that if you really want to get hold of this course for 50% off. Sorry about the plug, but all this is related to current stuff that I actually have. So I go back to my labels, and another one that you can, but the Command J, the other one that I actually use most commonly is content. Again, I just type in CON, brings up content, return, and it actually brings up the stuff that I'm working on or want to work on at the moment. So here are the things that are like content here. This is about marketing and entrepreneurship, Twitter magic, hacks for the power user. But I also have like my Evernote video ideas, blog post ideas, working with work ideas. They are all in there. So that's how I have my Evernote organized right now. I have my notebooks are all set up with numbers, so they actually line up how I want to see them, and my tags are set up that way. As I said in the introduction, this is by no means perfect for you or anyone else, but it really, really works well for me. And what I always do stress is that you need to create a system of tagging and notebooks that work for you, not necessarily work for anyone else. I was inspired by Enrico Nahler's system. I really liked it. It really works for me. But that might not necessarily work for you. There are many other systems out there. There's no right or wrong way of doing it. What it has to do is that you can capture and collect the notes that you want to capture and collect, and more importantly, be able to find them using your system later. Okay, hopefully you found this useful and insightful. It just remains for me now to wish you all a very, very productive week.